And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell. It's a global simulcast. Carol Massar joins us now, alongside Bailey Lipschultz in today for Tim Stenovic. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube. A wild day in equity markets and really cross-asset markets. Carol Massar here as a market, of course, having to grapple with the re-rise of geopolitical risk.
Yep, on again, off again. That peace accord, on again, off again. That war between the U.S. and Iran. We saw oil prices definitely go up, and that boosted a lot of names in the energy space. Having said that, I think it's kind of interesting in the last few minutes of trading to see the S&P and NASDAQ 100 move up towards its best levels of the day, up about 100 points now on the NASDAQ 100.
Yeah, and the big drivers to the upside, NVIDIA up 20 points, Broadcom up 10 points. Interestingly enough, though, we are seeing these chip stocks back in vogue, but we are seeing a bit of weakness, or at least from a points perspective, underperformance for the likes of Microsoft and Google.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, how long that chip outperformance lasts when we sort of flip back. We've been talking a lot about this pair trade that has developed when it comes to the hyperscalers, to the chip stocks. It feels like they've been trading leadership for the past couple weeks. Have to imagine that's going to continue. Absolutely.
And of course, we talk about everything going on in the cross-asset space with that rise in oil prices and the rise in yields, which, of course, I don't know, maybe that changes the calculus for how some of the people look at valuations. I guess my question is, were people really looking at valuations on some of these names, Carol?
It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
They seem to be willing to jump on board. It doesn't really matter.
All right, well, we get the closing bells in New York, and let's just face it, it could have been a lot worse. All of the major indices today open in the red, some of them very deep in the red, and all of them are going to finish well off the lows of the day. The Dow Jones Industrial Average among the worst performer, down about 580 points, or about 1.1%. The S&P 500, which had been down as much as 1%, is going to close the day only down by about 0.3%, 74.4857 to be precise. The NASDAQ Composite and the NASDAQ 100, each which were deep in the red earlier in the session, both finishing in the green, up about 0.2 to 0.3%. And the Russell 2000, Carol, that's going to end lower by about 0.9%.
All right, so just shy of 1% there on the Russell. Hey, let's go back to the S&P 500. Katie, most names in that average, almost 400 to the downside today, a little bit more than 100 to the upside. So you definitely saw more of a risk-off trade, and it was just some big names, a few names maybe just altering that index.
And that is exactly the story that you see when you take a look at the circle, which shows the sector performance. Information technology, that is the big green slice that you see there, higher by about 1.4% as a sector. You also saw energy, as expected, rise as well, also a gain of 1.4%. But when you look at all that red, the worst performer on the day as a sector, it's interesting. It was actually materials down 2.5%, but financials not too far behind, down about 1.9%. Overall, Carol, 9 sectors in the red, just 2 in the green.
Yeah, and financials, of course, we'll start to get a read on them next week with big bank earnings. Let's go to some of the individual gainers in today's session. Kind of a no-brainer. I had to talk about some of the energy names. You had Chevron, that name rallying in a big way, up just about 1.1%. It was up as much as 2.6% earlier in the session. Occidental, another major player there, up as much intraday, 6%, finishing the day with a 3.7% gain. But this, of course, has to do with increased tensions between the U.S. and Iran, attacks going back and forth. President Trump saying the war isn't necessarily still on, but it doesn't sound like they're moving it closer to resolving it. So reigniting that geopolitical risk premium in prices. We did see oil prices above $80 a barrel for both WTI and Brent. So certainly playing out in the energy patch. I'm going to go over to the chip names. Broadcom, we saw that one. It was a top performer, and I think both the S&P and the NASDAQ 100 throughout the trade today. Earlier this morning, Apple saying its chip agreement with Broadcom will exceed $30 billion, not too shabby. The deal will involve manufacturing more than 15 billion chips in the United States, supporting hundreds of jobs, and Apple will help Broadcom upgrade its production facility, specifically in Colorado. The partnership will include $1.5 billion investment in that Broadcom plant in Fort Collins, Colorado, to build advanced radio frequency components for wireless chips. So anyway, getting some more numbers around that, and that looks pretty impressive. And then I'm going to go to a name that Bailey brought up to me earlier in our team this week, TeraWulf. Ticker is WULF, and it's up about 13%. Morgan Stanley raising its price target on the data center operator following the Anthropic lease deal. Maintains an overweight price target raised to 72 from 66.50. Stock closing just below $23 a share. The analyst, Stephen Bird, sees the Anthropic deal as attractive with high equity value creation. Stock's up more than 90% year to date. 27% of the float is short. Just a little perspective there.
Just a little bit. Carol, on a day where almost 400 members in the S&P 500 are in the red, you would think I would have more to choose from. But we'll look nonetheless.
He was whining a little bit earlier.
I enjoy complaining. It's my personality.
I know.
But as you mentioned, energy outperforming, so that has weighed on airlines, cruise lines, as well as hotels. So looking at that airline index, as you can see, down 1.8%. Every member of the index in the red. Worst performer, American Airlines, down 4%. Alaska down more than 3%. And going to call out the fact that United and JetBlue both underperforming. Obviously, higher costs as it relates to oil, as it relates to jet fuel, impacting their bottom line. It seemed like we were finally getting out of worries around higher ticket prices for consumers here in the U.S. and around the world. Does not seem to be the case, and I want to stay on that topic and look at Norwegian Cruise Lines, ticker NCLH. Ended the day down 1.9%, not a huge drop, but was down at one point more than 4%. Investors kind of rethinking what this ultimately could mean. Norwegian Cruise Lines very much exposed to a wealthier clientele and also a clientele that typically travels around the world, so not necessarily catering to the U.S. consumer. So certainly something to keep an eye on. And Carol, my favorite stock, because I covered the IPO, SpaceX, ticker SPCX, down 0.8%. Main thing to call out, 3 days consecutively down 8.5%, has been in the red since it was added to the NASDAQ 100. Only up about 9.8% from that IPO price. So a little bit of consternation going on over at the house of Elon Musk.
It's a shame the street isn't bullish on this name.
We take a look at the yield space here real quickly. Basically a parallel shift once again for a second straight day. A little bit more modest of a shift today, up about 2 basis points across the board. But we should point out that the moves that we've seen over the last couple of days in the Treasury space having a big impact on equities. We saw that reflected in the downdraft in financial stocks, and you actually saw that reflected in what is now, I believe, a 3-day loss that we're seeing in home builders.
All right. So, hey, thank you so much for that, home builders. Because listen to this, everybody. A low birth rate risks creating a U.S. housing glut. You heard that right. Over the coming decade, a new era may be dawning in which a shortage of buyers, not homes.
Katie, you know nothing about that.
Is a defining feature. It's a new white paper out from Mortgage Bankers Association. You've been looking at properties, right, or looking for a home?
I'm someone who's currently pregnant and literally trying to close on a house right now.
Did you write this story, Katie? Is this you?
I wish there was a housing glut right now. But over the next decade, I mean, Carol, as you pointed out in our chat, that sounds great if you're a buyer.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you're a seller, not so happy.
Yeah.
Right?
As someone who has owned a house for a few years and is already thinking about what I could afford in the future, it's pretty doom and gloom, I will say. Over in West Orange, the one thing that does stand out, are we going to get mortgage rates still stuck around 6.5%? Katie, I don't know what you're thinking about when you're talking to your loan broker, but not a great for the bottom line if compared to where things were a few years ago.
It's not so much thoughts as just, screaming and static. Anyway.
Don't scream. You got a baby in your belly.
All right, well, don't worry. And maybe in the next 10 years, Katie, things will improve for you and Bailey. Meanwhile, back here in New York City, I know a lot of our viewers are haters on Zohran Mamdani, but he's actually trying to make some improvements to the transit system, but this time with buses. I'm not sure how I feel about this. So he wants to give city buses more dedicated lanes, like priority lanes is what he's calling them, which basically means I can't drive in those lanes, which I thought we already have these here.
I thought we did too.
Yeah, I feel like half the avenues in New York are now like one lane of traffic while it's just, the buses and everybody else gets the others. So apparently he's going to expand this. And the idea is they're going to be faster, I guess, in theory.
It's actually called Next Stop, Fast Buses, Better Service, which I don't know.
It's great branding. Whoever got paid for that, congratulations.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they could have come up with something
It's like
snappier.
how many McKinsey consultants does it take to screw in a light bulb? Is it going to be faster?
That's the hope here. I mean, the goal is to cut riders' travel times by up to 6 minutes on about 50 priority
6 minutes?
routes here.
Down
And
from
from
I need a
gazillion minutes,
Okay,
probably.
all
There are a lot of
guys?
these priority bus lanes, but I feel like it's not really enforced. I feel like I see people.
Well, they put cameras on the buses now that give you tickets.
But
But
it's
then
also
people get around them by lifting up their trunk. If they park in the lane, just lift
to
up their
try
trunk.
that.
But
So
it's
you
also
can't read the license plate.
traffic signals that prioritize buses, expanded all-door
Yes, I've seen
boarding,
that, yeah.
and investments in new buses and amenities to improve service. I don't even know what that means.
I would love. Is that an iPad? Are we like watching TV on these buses?
I don't know.
Be kind of cool.
I gotta ride one of these buses one day.
Oh,
Are they
okay.
clean?
Oh yeah. You're gonna say
Well-
no to the limo and gonna get on a bus?
Yeah. I rode the subway the other day, Carol.
That's good. Man of the
Did.
people.
I was, yeah.
Well done, Romaine. Well done.
Yeah.